The Tower of London is one of the most notorious castles in the whole of the world. It's the place where 3 queens of England were beheaded inside the walls on the small piece of grass, Tower Green, just outside of the tower's chapel. But below the floors of the chapel of St Peter ad Vincula lie the remains of hundreds of people who were executed nearby on Tower Hill. Those who lay inside the chapel include Thomas Cromwell, Henry VIII's close friend and chief minister, Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife, Margaret Pole, the Countess of Salisbury, who was brutally beheaded inside the tower, and Anne Boleyn, the notorious second wife of Henry VIII. Many of the people who were brought to the tower to be imprisoned during the medieval and Tudor period were high-profile prisoners, and were people who were suspected of the most serious crimes in the land. One crime in which you would pay for with your life was treason, and the infamous entrance to the Tower of London was named after the sheer amount of people who were brought to the tower that way, who were accused of being a traitor. So join us today as we look at Traitors Gate, the infamous entrance to the Tower of London. And remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. The notorious entrance of the Tower of London, known as Traitors Gate, is simply a watergate entrance that granted access from the River Thames into the tower. The Tower of London at the time, in the medieval period, was a key royal residence, and above Traitors Gate are the medieval royal lodgings of St Thomas's Tower that overlook the River Thames. The gate was designed by the medieval architect Master James of St George after he was commissioned by King Edward I between 1275 and 1279 to provide a new watergate to the tower. It was planned for the then king to arrive to the tower by river. So the king would travel down river from other residences or palaces before the gates would be opened, and then the royal procession would emerge inside the tower's walls above Tower Wharf. They would then go up the steps into the fortress's courts, being overlooked by the White Tower. But as time went on, this entrance became used for many more people than just the king and his royal entourage. In the centuries after, the Watergate was used to transport state prisoners into the tower, and in particular those prisoners who were accused of treason, an offence that you paid for with your head. Because of this, the gate then became known as Traitors Gate, and prisoners were usually brought here by barge along the River Thames, and were taken first under London Bridge. Here the heads of recently executed prisoners were placed on spikes, and it would show the prisoner what they would be awaiting when they left the tower to go to Tower Hill to be beheaded. Famously, when Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife, was brought to the Tower of London to await her execution, she passed under the heads of her former lovers, the men she was accused of sleeping with, behind the king's back. But in the Tudor period, there were countless famous political prisoners and figures who were brought into the tower via Traitors Gate. For example, Edward the Duke of Buckingham, Sir Thomas More, Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey, Edward Seymour, the Duke of Somerset, the future Queen Elizabeth I, and Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex. Each of these were taken through Traitors Gate, but one interesting case is that of Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife. She had been found accused of adultery, incest and treason after Thomas Cromwell spun a web of lies and deceit to force the king out of his marriage to his second wife. She was brought down the River Thames by barge, and for long it was believed that she entered via Traitors Gate. But this is not allegedly the case. She was taken to the tower on the 2nd of May 1536 by barge from Greenwich, but upon getting to the tower she did not allegedly pass through the gate, and she actually went into the tower via the Queen's steps on Tower Wharf, and was then brought in through the court gate. When Anne arrived at the tower, she was greeted by William Kingston, who met her by the steps leading from Traitors Gate. Anne asked, "Shall I go to some dungeon?" And Kingston, the constable of the tower, replied with, "No, madame, you shall go to your chambers, whereat your grace lay before your coronation." Whilst she was imprisoned in the tower, Anne did go through bouts of hysteria and depression, and she was known to slowly lose her mind after she was placed on trial and found guilty, knowing that she would be executed for the lies and deceit. She was executed on Tower Green, a short walk under the Bloody Tower's arch, from where Traitors Gate can be found. But some do believe, though, that Anne was brought to the tower via Traitors Gate. The term Traitors Gate was used from 1543, and Anne's daughter would also find herself passing under the notorious entrance. Princess Elizabeth, the Protestant daughter of King Henry VIII, posed a significant threat for his Catholic daughter Mary I when she came onto the throne. Elizabeth was accused of being involved in White's rebellion against Mary, and on Palm Sunday 1554 was taken by barge down the River Thames to the Tower. It was the same place where her mother was beheaded, and no doubt for Elizabeth this played on her mind and tortured her along the way. She passed under London Bridge and was taken into the Tower through Traitors Gate. She refused at first to land at the gate, saying she was no such traitor, and the weather that day was heavy with a downpour of rain. But Elizabeth had no option. She was forced to land at Traitors Gate, and then found herself passing under the arch of the bloody tower, where she may have seen glimpses of the scaffold. The very scaffold left over from the execution of her cousin, Lady Jane Grey, who was beheaded upon the request of Mary I. Elizabeth found herself at the age of 21, a prisoner in the Bell Tower, but she managed to avoid the fate of a traitor, and nothing could be proven against her. Traitors Gate continued to be used for those accused of crimes serious enough to warrant a stay inside the Tower of London. It really was during the reign of King Henry VIII that it was used, but later it was used by subsequent monarchs, and another person who passed under there was James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth. He led a rebellion in 1685 to overthrow his uncle, King James II, and after this failed he was tried and transported to the Tower to await his execution. Monmouth was taken downriver and into the Tower where he stayed before his execution was performed on Tower Hill. The blundering executioner Jack Ketch made a mess of the proceedings, and for this butchered Monmouth's execution. So Traitors Gate simply started out as a watergate, and a royal entrance that would grant privacy for the kings and their entourage to enter the castle, but it gained a much more sinister reputation. It's interesting to consider that this shift in notoriety came also with the tower itself, as during the Tudor period it transitioned from a royal residence to a prison to house the most serious of offenders. Standing opposite the Tower of London on the south bank of the River Thames, you can clearly see where the entrance is, with the ominous words "Entry to Traitors Gate" painted just below Tower Wharf. It had a key effect for King Henry VIII, as the journey to the Tower of London, one of the last that many would make, had a key propaganda effect. The terror of passing under London Bridge, with the heads of former prisoners executed for treason, would be a key aspect of the journey. No doubt the prisoners who passed under Traitors Gate would have been terrified, as they knew the reputation that the entrance had, and also that the tower had, following the executions that had been carried out there. Stories that emerged on areas of the tower such as Traitors Gate helped to make the Tower of London one of the most feared prisons in history. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.